to a brand new video today, and today we are going to be continuing with the Ant-Man series before Ant-Man and Wasp Quantumania comes out. If you don't know, I actually reviewed the very first film a couple days ago. If you're interested, go watch that before you watch this. You want to support my channel. I like that. I like support. But if you've watched that video already, today we are finally going to be talking about Ant-Man and the Wasp. But once again, this film was directed by Peyton Reed and came out in 2018. And once again, this film is starred by Paul Rudd, Evangeline Lilly, Michael Douglas, and as a newcomer this time around, it has Michelle Pfeiffer. And of course, this film kicks off immediately after Captain America Civil War. Scott Lang's on house arrest, he's been pardoned by the government, and he has a dream of Janet Van Dyne, who's Hank Pym's wife. So they must all come together again and embark on a journey to the quantum realm to go and rescue her. Now with positives with this movie, I'm going to be much more brief than I was in my very first video, because a lot of the positives that I'm going to list are present in the first film, so I don't want to reiterate and go over them all again, because you just want to hear the new stuff. You want to hear, do I like this movie? Do I not like this movie? And I'm not just going to keep repeating stuff. Just like that first movie, everyone in this movie is fantastic. Paul Rudd is wonderful and as charismatic as ever. Evangeline Lilly gets a lot more to do in this movie, and she's insanely good. She definitely gets the most screen time out of everyone. I think the most development also. And I really enjoyed her struggle of her trying to find her mother in the quantum realm, and somewhere where nothing they thought could exist ever. And they thought she was just dead forever. And her suddenly realizing that maybe they have a chance of getting her back. Michael Douglas also is wonderful in this movie. I love his dynamic with her. Throughout the film of them just trying to find this loved one, it's just so well done. Now just like the first film, this film does have a very similar tone to that first movie. It's very warm, very heartfelt, very self-contained. This is another one of those movies that is very disconnected from most of the MCU. It does relate to events in Civil War, but it is still pretty much its own thing, which I adored about the first film, and I'm glad they did this time around. And I do enjoy it for the most part. But I really wanted to talk about the comedy, because I do think the comedy is good in this movie, but it's definitely not as good as the first film. There are moments where they don't hit, like the jokes just aren't funny, but there's occasional moments in this movie that for some reason still make me cry laugh. And if you don't know what that means, it's basically laughing to a point where you're basically just crying from laughter. There's a couple moments like that in this movie. My favorite scene being with Scott. He has his brand new suit, and it's sort of like a prototype, so it's malfunctioning, and it kind of makes him like really small, but not too small, just small enough so people can see him. He's about like the size of like, I don't know, like a 5-year-old kid, and he's like running around, and just the music accompanying these scenes kills me every time I watch it.
Hey, where's your hall pass? Hey, I'm talking to you. Hey! Hey.
But getting all these pros out of the way, I unfortunately have quite a bit of cons with this movie after rewatch. And there was things I picked up on that I didn't originally know, because I originally thought this movie was, spoiler alert, like an 8 out of 10, you know? I originally thought this movie was just fantastic and nothing was wrong with it. But after rewatching it, it definitely changed my view on certain things. Now I just want to get the most obvious thing out of the way right now. This film again struggles with a villain problem. The villain isn't the greatest in this movie. Ghost is cool. She's an extremely cool character, just like Yellow Jacket in the first film. She does have a motivation, but once again, it's not a great motivation. There really isn't anything to it. Like, it's very surface level, and I don't really want to spoil it, I guess, if you haven't seen the movie. But just take into account, her motivations throughout this movie are very weird. Like, she changes tones dramatically in terms of what she wants to do. She gets very angry at people who are helping her for some reason. She's just a very odd character in general, and how they treated her journey throughout this movie. Yellow Jacket wasn't the best villain of all time, but he definitely wasn't bad. Like, you could definitely tell where he was coming from. But with Ghost, you can kinda get that? Not really. In a way you can, but it's definitely not as prevalent. But honestly, taking that away, she's still super cool. Like, I love her design. I love the actor who plays her. She does a pretty good job for what they're given. But I honestly just think in terms of character, she is lacking. But the more interesting thing I actually wanted to note in this video is, I actually think this film is really unfocused. I've talked about this before in certain other movie reviews where I felt this is similar. This film doesn't feel like a straight plot. It very much feels like almost like a side quest. Like, it feels like, oh, we have to go here. Now we have to go here. Oh, we have to go here now. Now we have to go here. It feels very much just discombobulated. Like, everything feels like it's just going from place to place, but there's no, like, genuine good direction to take the plot. It's just going from place to place to place and just doing other things that could be for maybe a laugh or just, I don't know, just stuff that isn't really necessary. And it really does make the film feel clunky for me. I don't know what it was. I think another problem in this movie I have is the sheer amount of subplots. There are a lot of subplots in this movie, and like 9 times out of 10, none of them are really that engaging. Like, one of them's with Ghost and they're trying to flesh out her character. I would have preferred them to go more into that. But then you have stuff like Michael Peña's character. Scott Lang has a subplot where he has to be home. You have this criminal group that's trying to steal from Hank Pym. There's a lot going on in this movie, and it's really weird because I don't know why they put so much in this movie, especially certain things like the criminal subplot, because it doesn't go anywhere. They tease something, but it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't do anything for the main plot, and they honestly could have been removed, and the film would have honestly felt way better. It would have felt way more straightforward. You wouldn't have all these different villains and all these different moving parts that make the film just feel like too much. It makes it feel jumbled, it makes it feel unfocused to me, and I really didn't like that after rewatch. And I think the biggest sin about some of these subplots too is that they're just boring. I was much more invested in the main plot of Hank trying to find his wife. That's where the film definitely held up the most. Like, that part of the movie is still great, and it gives me shades of what the very first Ant-Man was, but for some reason they throw in all this other crap, and I don't really know why they did that because it was very unneeded. Another strange enigma in this movie is I actually don't think Paul Rudd should have been the main character in this movie, and I know that's gonna sound weird because the film is literally called Ant-Man and the Wasp, but it honestly should have just been called Wasp because the film is much more interesting when it's about her rather than Paul Rudd in this movie. Like, sure, you still love Paul Rudd. He's still, like, my favorite Avenger besides Captain America. He's still hilarious. He's great. Like, he's still good. But he didn't need to be the spotlight in this movie. A much better idea would have just been focusing on Hope and her journey of trying to find her mom and making it just more about her. Giving her more screen time because she has some really good acting scenes. And like I said in my positives, she's a really good character. Like, they really do wonders for a character in this movie, but you honestly kind of sit there and you think to yourself, so is she the main character or is Scott the main character? Because there are certain things in that movie that happen. There are key plot details that imply that Scott is the main character. Like, they kind of tie it all in, but it's not done very well. Like, Scott isn't really thrown into the movie very well. He honestly could have just been completely absent from this movie, and I don't think it would have really been that big of a deal. Like, I still think that they could have went with the main story and maybe just fleshed out Wasp's relationship with Hank. I think that would have been honestly a much better idea, and I honestly, after rewatching it, would have really liked to see that instead of them more focusing a little bit on both and kind of just going from scene to scene and it making this feel like this big mess where it's just going from scene to scene and doesn't feel consistent. But honestly, I was actually kind of disappointed with my rewatch of this movie. This film isn't as good as I remember. It's not a bad movie. I want to say that right now. It's definitely not an awful movie. There are parts about it I love. There are parts about it that I just don't really like anymore, which is so unfortunate. The film feels very messy. It feels like there's a little bit too much going on, but the main conflict of what they're going for is still really compelling and it's really good, and that's why I'm going to give this film like a 6.5. You know, it's not bad, like I said. It's kind of leaning towards a 7, but it's not quite there. And this is the first point I've ever had to give, because I just don't feel right giving this movie a 6, because it's not that bad. But there are just things about it that really hinder the film and keep it from me giving it a 7 out of 10 or like an 8 out of 10. But yeah, those are my quick thoughts on Ant-Man and the Wasp. Tune in for the next video. It's going to be such a good one. I can't wait. Quantumania comes out on Friday. I can't wait to go see it. I'm going to have a review hopefully on Friday. Don't quote me on that. That might not happen because I'm busy all the time, so. But anyways, if you like what you saw here, please like and subscribe down below for more content on the channel. Coming pretty damn soon, and I'm going to see y'all next time. See ya.